Good morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is the 200th episode of The Take. So we're glad to have you here. And I am doing the Take for Market Rebellion. I got to tell you what, our media team is absolutely doing an unbelievable job. And we're going to talk about that giveaway in just a moment as we get a little bit further into this and start talking about today. But let's look back to yesterday. Yesterday was a very interesting day because we started off Monday with the markets that looked pretty strong in the pre-market at least. A lot of hope about what was going on, potential stimulus, all of that. And that sort of fizzled as we got into the first hour of the trading session even. We were up over 100 plus points in the pre-markets. We started off okay, and then we started to give some back, and the acceleration and that press to the downside really started to be heartfelt later as we got deeper into the day and obviously going to the end of the day, and we finished, call it basically the lows of the session across the board for indexes. The Dow finished down 410 points, NASDAQ down 190 points, S&P down about 56 points, all working together in a lockstep fashion to the downside. When you look, it was very, very difficult. Matter of fact, most of the different categories, the sectors that we look at, down about the same amount. But when you look at these three major indices, all down about 1.5%, the only stock in the Dow yesterday that actually remained in the green was Intel, and it was trading up towards 54.5. We got a little bit of flip going on that today. But that being said, volatility index very close to 30. We got into those upper 29s, middle 29s, and certainly was pressing there, especially when you look at that big move to the downside. And as I say, that accelerated move to the downside oftentimes will pull up that volatility that much quicker. And it can be something that's amazing to watch how fast we watch volatility start to tick up as people get a little bit more nervous and we start to see those kind of moves, a 1.5% move. We've been seeing tremendous moves both up and down. We did have some of that yesterday, started up and then finishing so far deep into the red. Now, what was really the mechanics behind all that? Where were we seeing stocks and sectors getting hit? Well, technology definitely hit pretty strong, 1.8% to the downside. You had financials down a little over 1.5%. We lost that 25 level in the XLF that we frequently reference. Energy down a little over 2% yesterday. Healthcare down about 1.5%, maybe a little bit more. And old tech down about 2% across the board. When I say old tech, I'm talking Apple, Microsoft, Cisco. I look at those three names. They are in the Dow, and you look over and you see them all down about 2%. It seems like almost working in tandem together. So a lot getting hit. Matter of fact, biotech, again, we talk about the NASDAQ. We talk about different elements of what's the components really moving things around. Biotech yesterday, not a good day for biotech either, as that was getting pressed to the downside. Names like Amgen, that's in the Dow now, but you got Biogen as well, down 4% yesterday. Gilead down a little over 2%. Regeneron, Moderna, AbbVie, all down about 2%. So you get the idea, a pretty hard press to the downside. Semiconductors got hit, the SMH, but not as much as all of the other categories, all down 1.5%, 2% or so. You look over at the semiconductors, actually only down about 0.5%. So that was kind of bucking the trend a little bit. And there was plenty of names that were in the positive yesterday, except in the Dow, where it was just one of the 30 names actually finishing in the green. I already mentioned that. That was Intel. So where did we see some of the activity yesterday? Well, we traded about 28.5 million contracts, another big day for the volume. Again, that's about the average number at this point in time for 2020. We are pushing that upper 20s in terms of upper 20 million in terms of what we're seeing from a volume perspective day in and day out in terms of the derivatives market. So when we look, and I wanted to break this down a little bit for you, when we talk about those volumes, a lot of the time we talk about, well, the highest volume, that was Apple. It was trading about normal, which is about 2 million contracts a day, blah, 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 all of that. Today, I wanted to point out some of the unusual movements that we were seeing in terms of volumes yesterday. So DraftKings, one of those names, up about 330,000 trading there and well above the normal day in terms of volumes. The other one, Hertz, what a day, 277,000 contracts, but that's a 600% gain in terms of versus normal. Just an amazing number yesterday. And we see this happen more and more. There are certain names that are popping up and starting to see some huge volumes. We had Kodak for a while going back. We've had Neo here and there as well. So a lot of different names. Throw in Tesla as well, very often in that top three. But we've seen a lot of names where we are seeing extraordinary volumes versus what they do on an average daily basis. And so I just wanted to point out a couple of those names from yesterday. So I talked about this being the 200th episode of The Take. been doing this for a while now. It's a lot of fun. And these guys at our marketing team does a great job. And they were talking about, hey, we ought to do a giveaway. We did a giveaway when we hit the 100 mark. Why not do another one here at the 200 mark? So I'm going to have to read this to you. To qualify for that, you've got to subscribe to The Take at marketrebellion.com/The Take. And that's one element. The second element is you got to follow the guy, Market Rebellion, on Twitter. Not too hard. Stuff that you might want to do anyway. You should want to do anyway if you are interested in not just the derivatives markets, but we've got guys all over the place. And I'll tell you what, we've got people that are chart people that are absolutely outstanding. And I'll tell you, AJ has been a great addition, but we've got a great team. We've got a really, really great team. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I'm going to be doing a little podcast through Market Rebellion. It's going to be a lot of fun, so you're going to want to check that out as well, where we're talking with Ryan and some of the guys and talking about a lot of the different things that we are seeing as we're getting into earnings season and how that's playing out, and obviously the elections, and talking about all kinds of different trades that we are seeing on a day in and day out basis and where some of the opportunities might lie. And he's a great chart man himself, so we'll be getting through that as well. So this morning, started off in the pre-markets up about 120 points on the Dow. We had a strong start for the NASDAQ as well, up about 30 points. Volatility index starting to ease back a little bit. We're down near that 29 level, maybe even a little bit below that 29 level, but upper 28s for sure, 28, 29. Early on, we're up about 170 points, first 20 minutes or so, up about 170 points. NASDAQ really started to pick up a little bit more steam. It was up about 60 points. Now, as I'm looking, we're up about 230 points on the Dow. NASDAQ's up 105 points right now, and the S&P up about 32 points. So some really nice movement. And as I say, volatility still hanging in there just below 29 right now, but a really interesting start to the day as people once again starting to wonder, are they going to be able to come up with something? Is Nancy Pelosi going to be able to deal with Mnuchin? Are they going to be able to come up with any kind of a deal? That seems to be in the forefront right now for investors, and that's where we've seen both the moves to the upside, and when things start to not look so great, we get a day like yesterday, we really pull the rug out, and about a 500-point move from top to bottom. Really a pretty pressing move to the downside yesterday. So we'll see how this plays out as we get a little bit deeper into the day. So what's really moving the Dow as we're moving to the upside? Well, a lot of very familiar names, really, and a little bit of the old school. We've got Travelers, we've got Procter, we've got Dow, we've got American Express, we have JP Morgan, all looking very strong early on. That move of the Dow. We are getting a little bit of a pull, too, with IBM. IBM, last I looked, was down about 6%, and that's getting some pretty good pressure. A little bit of a surprise. I heard the guys kicking this around on CNBC this morning, talking about what's going on and why IBM is getting a little bit pushed to the downside, some of the disappointment right now. So there's a lot of different factors, but nonetheless, we had that big move to the upside in IBM just a week or so ago, and now we're seeing a 6% move to the downside, so a pretty significant move on a pullback as well. NASDAQ, what's leading right now? Facebook, throw in PayPal, throw in JD. One of the China names, of course. Workday is another one that is definitely powering the NASDAQ, at least early on. Semiconductors kind of mixed early. Yeah, great move out of Western Digital. Micron looking pretty strong. But Intel, which was, as I said yesterday, was the only name in the green, that's actually starting to pull back a little bit today, along with AMD. That's kind of trading kind of more closer to flat, which that's okay, but when you consider the fact that the NASDAQ's up about 100 points, Dow's up about 200 points, you'd almost expect to see that the semiconductor index actually fly into the upside. Not seeing that as much today. We're seeing other areas. As a matter of fact, one of the areas that's rebounding pretty nicely this morning, the OIH and energy itself, the OIH, a lot of those service names, which oftentimes are some of those beta names as well, along with the XLE, which is obviously those mega cap type names. That's all up about 1% or more early on. So energy definitely showing up. So we got some unusual option activity for you, and there was plenty of pick from. Again, we're 39 minutes into the trading session right now. As I mentioned, 225 points to the upside. So what are we seeing in unusual? Well, this is a name that hit not too terribly long ago. It's Twitter. This is a name that I personally already own, so I sell options against this. And here we are seeing more options coming in looking for more upside. So might be time for me to consider rolling my options out and up a little bit, but we'll see what I choose to do with that right now. But at 45.65 on the stock, so just a little bit above 45.5, they are buying 3,500 of this Friday's expiring 46.5 calls. So just barely out of the money. These are less than $1 away, and these could really start to accelerate to the upside. So we're still early enough in the week that there's plenty of time for these to perform, and a name like Twitter certainly can move very rapidly, even in hours at times. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but this is a roll. They're rolling up from the 45 strike calls. They were right when they were buying those. They're selling out of those. This makes sense, hopefully. And if not, our Market Rebellion team of educators certainly could help you out. But they're rolling out of the 45 calls, taking those off. They bought those just not too terribly long ago. They're selling those now, pretty nice profit, but still want to be there, so they're rolling into the 46.5 calls. This is something we see all the time. These are the trades we love to see because it's somebody who was right, and they still want to be in the trade, but they want to take some of that risk off the table, which tells you they're very disciplined and very smart. So love seeing some of these kind of trades. This is one of those that really does stand out as one of those very smart trades. Twitter's obviously, with the elections and everything else that's going on in the world as we know it, this is a source, a news source for a lot of different people, a lot of different political ads. There's so much that goes into this whole thing that I think it makes a little bit of sense why somebody maybe is still positive to Twitter. That's why I own the stock. So I'm talking my book. Exactly right. If you were mumbling that, you're right. I own the stock. I don't own the calls right now. And at times I own stock and calls. Right now, that's not one of those times. I own the stock. I sell calls against that position, trying to create a cash flow outside of just the movement to the upside, hopefully for the stock. So got two more things for you. Again, the 200th episode. And how do you do that? Again, how do you get that free giveaway that we're talking about? Well, you've got to subscribe to The Take. That's how you qualify. That's at marketrebellion.com/The Take. And follow on Market Rebellion. Last thing I want to mention to you is we lost an icon in the sports world. Now, it's not a name that everybody around the country would know because this is actually a sports writer. He was a very good true blue friend to me and my family. This guy's name's Sid Hartman. 100 years. He was actually 100 and a half because his birthday was back in March. So Sid lived 100 plus years. He was a dropout out of high school. And throughout his career, as he wrote and worked for, he started with delivering papers at the Star Tribune here in Minneapolis, and then eventually became a writer, and then eventually became a columnist who had his own column every single day. Just a tremendous guy, great friend. He helped finance and get the Minneapolis Lakers. So if you're wondering why they're the LA Lakers, they used to be in Minneapolis. This is the land of 10,000 lakes. They don't got lakes out in LA, right? I'm just kidding, but they don't have lakes like we have here in Minnesota. There's no doubt about that. That's why they're the Lakers. But he was one of those guys who was there for that. He was there for the Minnesota Vikings. He was there when the Timberwolves came. He's been there for every sports franchise that has been there, and he's been involved in many of them, but he started off even as an investor way back in the day. Just a wonderful guy, just passed away on Sunday. His last column was filed on Sunday. Absolutely an amazing career, the most tenacious, hardest working man I'd ever seen in my entire life. He actually, as a sports reporter, even helped, which he wasn't supposed to do, recruit me to go to the University of Minnesota back in 1981, which is an amazing thing, and he was successful. I was set, ready, going to Cal Berkeley. I was excited. I was going to be playing out in the Pac-10 back then. Now it's the Pac-12. Pac-10 back then. My father played when they were the Pac-8, played in the Rose Bowl, all that kind of thing. And I was set to go and play with my brother Paul, who was an outside linebacker. He and Ron Rivera. I was going to go and be a middle linebacker for Cal and make it a dual Najarian with Ron Rivera on the other outside. So it was really exciting. That was something I wanted to do. And over time, between my own father and Sid Hartman, this great sports reporter here in Minnesota, things changed. I went to the University of Minnesota. Great decision, great place to be, unbelievable. And the business opportunities that are created for people who do go to the University of Minnesota are just uncanny. You can't even imagine it. Anyway, just wanted to have a shout out to that. Great friend forever, wonderful person. He was a radio personality, a TV personality, but he was a sports reporter who to his final day was walking with the same cassette carrier that he'd had. Literally, this thing had to be 50 years old, and he'd still be carrying it around for all of his interviews and so forth. It's really funny. So many stories about that man, but what a great person Sid Hartman. Folks, have a great day of trading. As I say, educate yourself, understand the derivatives world. 28.5 million contracts again today. I bring it up all the time for one reason. You got to know where the growth is. This is where it is. Enjoy. This is the take for Market Rebellion, the 200th episode. Look into how you can get one of these free giveaways.